Okay, this is in-class assignment 5, part 2, continued. We're going to take this model just one step further than what we did in class. First, I'd like to show you guys where to change the offset value for your beams. I'm going to go back to that south elevation actually because it works out fairly easily. I went ahead and ungrouped all of these so that I could start to manipulate them a little bit easier. But you'll notice that these beams don't go to the center of the wide flange beam, and they don't go to the center of this wide flange beam either. So I'm going to go ahead and left click and drag and just select those beams. And if you notice here, there's in the geometric position, there's a start joint cutback and an end joint cutback. You can go ahead and start changing that in the type properties or instance properties rather of these specific beams only. And I'm going to type in a negative value on both sides, and you'll see that it extends those beams to the center point there. And so that's now more realistic to what would happen. And it seemed like the other ones did that on their own. It was just that one set, and you can see those actually go through to the other side. And let's check this side. This one doesn't. So let's go back to our south elevation and let's go over to the right side. I'm struggling with selecting all of them at once, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and temporarily hide my roof so that I can see what's going on here. And I'm going to left click and drag and then filter out what I don't want. I can uncheck, check none, and then just grab the structural joists, go OK, and make sure that we're not grabbing these lower joists, which we are. So we can use the shift. If we hold in shift, you can see that there's a minus sign that starts to appear next to our arrow. You can go ahead and unselect those guys and now just change the end extrusion here to maybe 0.5 of an inch and hit apply. And that didn't quite do it, so let's try 1 inch. Looks like I'm going the wrong direction. Again, I'm going to deselect these over here. And that seemed to do it for that side. We'll just repeat that same pattern there. Okay, we can go ahead and reset the temporary hide so that we see the roof plane again. So the couple of things that I'd like to do that we didn't get a chance to do in class is to create a circular donut here that just makes this detail a little bit cooler. And so I want to do that, and then also apply some other materials to these. So I'm going to do the materials first. And right now they're ASTM steel. And it looks like I had selected something else as well, but I just want the structural framing elements. I'm going to go ahead and make those an aluminum so it has a little shine to it, but not a ton. Say okay. The other thing that I want to do is create materials here for this guy, for these column connections. And so I'm going to edit the type properties of this, and I'm going to use the aluminum again for the bolts. And for the material, I'm going to type in metal dark metal. And you can see down here we have a material, dark metal. It basically is just a black color with a highlight, and we're going to go ahead and use that as our material for our connector. And you'll notice all of them updated because I arrayed them, and they're an instance, or they're a copy of this, and so if I change one, they all change. So let's go ahead and create this donut here. And it's similar to how we revolved the donut in our massing tool, but now we're going to do it, model it in the project environment instead of outside the project environment. I'm going to go to my level 3 at the moment, and I want to draw a reference plane basically, and dimension it so that it's centered between grid line 7 and grid line 8. And I'm going to name it Donut 1 for now. And now I'm going to set my reference plane, my working plane, to our Donut 1. Say OK. And I want to draw in my east elevation. And we can't see our center point of where our cross bracing connects, but at this point we don't need to. What we need to do is create a component, but we want to model it in place, and we want to pick probably a structural stiffener as our family category, and click OK. And now we can use the revolve tool to go ahead and let's first create an axis that this is going to revolve around. And I'm just going to draw this for now anywhere. And we want to change this to 1:1, so it's just our viewport scale, so that you know, everything's not so large. And now we want to do our boundary line, and we want to pick the center point of our boundary line as being the nearest grid. Down at the bottom, you'll see that down here, when I hover over that, it's grid D. And we're going to go ahead and create a circle, and I'm going to add a parameter to it and call that R for radius. And then I'm also going to dimension from the axes to, doesn't want to let me grab the center point, but I can grab the bottom of this. And what that allows us to do is then change the distance, which is basically the radius of the donut. So we're going to go ahead and select that and add another parameter and call that R2. Okay. And we want something fairly small. We have a 1-inch diameter for our cross bracing, so we probably want it just slightly bigger. So I'm going to say for well, radius 2 is going to be our radius of it, and we want that to be 3 inches. And our R1 is the radius here, so we're going to make that 0.75 of an inch. I'm going to say apply. And we're going to go ahead and create that. And if I flip back to my south elevation, still in my still in this family that I'm creating, this component, I can start to apply material to it when it's selected. So I'm going to add a parameter and just call this material. Say OK. But now I can move it into place and snap midpoint. Just go ahead and move it down so that it's kind of in the center here. We can nudge it around with our arrow keys up and down, but it's centered on this X right here. And so that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and copy it while we're still in the command here. And I'm just going to use my top midpoint of my column connection again to get my spacing that I want. And I can put a constraint on this so that it stays level, and I can type SM to snap to midpoint. And you can see now I have a second one here. And so I continue to do that using the constant and multiple command. And snap midpoint. Sorry, let's do that one more time. Copy multiple, and let's get the top midpoint there. SM for snap to midpoint. So I've got these things in place, and I'm going to go ahead and finish the model. And now you can see they're all one model. And so if we edit the type, we can edit all of them. And I'm going to make them, or the material, sorry. And we're going to just go ahead and create, not create a new material, but apply the aluminum material again to it. Now, So we drew the cross bracing to get our center point, basically, so that we could place this thing. But now that we have that, we can adjust this guy down using these arrows so that now it's intersecting just on the one side there. And we can do the same for this one. Bring him down. And if we select both of them, we should be able to use the mirror command here and get the center point of one of these guys and go ahead and mirror it. And so now we have kind of an interesting connection here. You could do that with any shape, basically. I just chose to use the revolve command as something that we did in the past that you can apply to other models by using the revolve command to create a component. And now I'm just going to go ahead and instead of redrawing each one of those like that, I'm just going to delete these. And now I can go ahead and tab through to get my selection of all four of those lines, and we can go ahead and array that from this center point to snap midpoint, and we want to array it six times, not seven. And so that just adds a little more detail to the model. And it looks like we can edit this group and just go ahead and drag those ends up a little bit further so that they're penetrating the steel column that we placed. And I have to tab through to get to the other one. And now I can manipulate him as well. And this one. And hit the check button, and they all should now start to intersect the column. So that's one of the three things that I wanted to do. I showed you guys how to offset the beams. Created our donut connector here in the center. And now, last but not least, we just want to add a little bit more detail to this. So we want to put some connection points in here, similar to what we did here to create bolt heads. We want to do that on the columns as well, on the interior. So I'm going to use my section box in 3D to go ahead and cut back into the building so that we now can see these columns. And I'm going to do another component model in place, and this time I am going to use structural framing. You could use stiffeners as well, whichever one you prefer. I'm going to go with framing for the moment. And now we want to set our working plane. We want to pick a plane, and we're just going to pick one of these sides of these beams that we've created, and we're going to create an extrusion using the inscribed polygon tool, and we're going to make 1-inch bolts, and I'm going to copy, might as well snap to the front of it there. If I have it highlighted and use my my cube orientation, it zooms right into what you're working on. And if we can go ahead and change our scale so that it doesn't look crazy out of proportion, that line work that we're working with. Just go ahead and copy this down. 2 bolts is probably sufficient, and we can kind of center those just by tabbing through. Press the check button to finish that command. You notice it placed them on that face, extruding out towards us. First, we want to set the structural material, and then we want to use the move command to go ahead and move them into place here on our column. If I unselect them and reselect them, it should give me the tool to go ahead and drag them out. And we can just kind of loosely place them in there. Again, this is just another little detail item that makes the render look a bit better once it's complete. So now that we have one placed, we can go ahead and copy those and use the center of the column to go ahead and snap midpoint. SM snaps to the midpoint. The quick keys, and just go ahead and place those and finish the model. And now if I select on one of them, they all get selected, and I can edit the structural material and the instance properties here. And let's just apply the dark metal again so that they pop against that wood. So that's all we need for next Thursday. So go ahead and get the structure complete. We did the floor structure for the second floor, columns, girders, and beams. We also did the roof structure for the roof. We placed the columns last week, but we went ahead and built a custom connection here at the start of the first video, and then we placed girders and beams and applied materials to them. I guess one last thing to say is, if we go to my Manage tab and select Materials, and if you have your viewport that you have set on realistic, you can start to make changes to your materials and see them in real time as you make changes. But what we want to do is go to the glue lam beam, and I want to go to the appearance, and you'll notice down here there's a lot of other settings we could use. I want to create a bump map on it just to give it a little bit more texture. And I'm just going to apply the glue lam texture again and set the sample size to 8 feet. And just reduce this a little bit. If I change my my viewing to be more like a wall, and we make this larger, we can start to see the texture being applied a little bit better as we do this. You see, the more I increase this, the more depth you get here. So that's obviously way too much. We just want it to be very slight. So maybe like a 20% looks good. I think you can also type in a number here. And you can see that starts to add just a little bit of texture. Maybe we want that a little higher. But you can now start to see the change in that little just depth perception. And so I'm going to click OK. And you're not going to notice it that too much here, but when we go to render, you will notice it. I just want to make sure that I applied that to my wall material too. I think we did. But at any rate, you can do it with the columns as well. So let's go ahead and double check this size, 2 feet by 4 feet. And now let's create a bump and use the same texture. And we want to uncheck the link button. And this is 2 feet by, 2 feet by 4 feet. Done. And again, if we change this to showing up, you can see without the bump map and now with the bump map. Just adds a little more depth to our material.